When most people think about building muscle, they think about the gym, about lifting weights, or maybe about scooping powder into a blender. Whey protein has become almost synonymous with strength. But here's a surprising fact. Muscle loss in aging, what we call sarcopenia, is not primarily a failure of exercise or even of protein powders. It's a failure of the right kind of nutrition delivered in the right way at the right time. And that's exactly where a simple, overlooked food comes in. One that rivals whey, supports muscle protein synthesis, and has additional benefits for longevity and overall health. Now let's set the stage. Sarcopenia isn't just about weaker arms or legs. It's about independence, brain health, and the ability to engage fully with life. Research shows that after the age of 30, we can lose up to 5% of our muscle mass every decade if we don't intervene. By the time someone reaches 60 or 70, that muscle decline can mean difficulty standing from a chair, slower walking speed, or higher risk of falls. But it's more than mobility. Muscle is a metabolic organ. It regulates blood sugar, communicates with the brain through myokines, and even influences mood and cognition. So the stakes are high. And here's the counterintuitive truth. While protein shakes can help, they're not the ultimate solution. Whole foods, especially certain plant and animal sources rich in leucine and essential amino acids, can actually do a better job at stimulating the pathways inside your cells that keep muscle fibers growing. What we're going to explore today is not only which food rivals whey protein in building muscle, but also why it works. We'll break down 6 key scientific insights from how your muscle cells sense amino acids, to the timing of your meals, to how your gut microbiome plays a hidden role in muscle repair. And for each, I'll give you a practical protocol you can start using immediately. Because here's the empowering part. Muscle loss with age is not inevitable. With the right science-based tools, you can protect your independence, sharpen your mind, and keep your body strong for decades. If you've ever wondered why 2 people can eat the same amount of protein, but one maintains their muscle while the other loses it, the answer often comes down to one molecule, leucine. Leucine is an essential amino acid, which means the body cannot produce it on its own. But more importantly, leucine acts like a light switch for your muscle machinery. Here's the science. Inside every muscle cell, there is a pathway called mTOR, the mechanistic target of rapamycin. Think of mTOR as the command center that decides whether your muscles will build up or break down. Research from the University of Texas and other institutions has shown that leucine is the most powerful dietary trigger of mTOR activation. Without leucine, your muscle building machinery stays in idle mode, even if you're eating plenty of protein overall. Now, here's what makes this fascinating. That whey protein contains leucine, but it's not the only or even the best source. Whole foods like eggs, lean beef, chicken, fish, and certain legumes pack leucine in a way that's slower to digest but more sustained in its effect. For example, 3 ounces of lean beef contains about 2.5 grams of leucine, while 2 eggs provide close to 1 gram. The threshold for activating muscle protein synthesis in older adults appears to be around 2.5 to 3 grams per meal. That means you need to be strategic. Simply sprinkling protein here and there isn't enough. Have you noticed how sometimes you feel satisfied after a protein shake, but 2 hours later your muscles feel flat, your energy dips, and you're hungry again? That's the difference between a fast digesting protein and a leucine-rich whole food. Whey spikes your amino acids quickly, but the effect fades. Foods with natural fats and fibers deliver leucine more gradually, keeping mTOR engaged for longer and reducing the breakdown signals that accelerate sarcopenia. A simple tool to apply here is what I call the leucine anchor. At every main meal, include at least 1 leucine-rich food source. Breakfast, 2, 3 eggs with a small portion of Greek yogurt. Lunch, lentil salad with a side of grilled chicken or fish. Dinner, a palm-sized portion of lean beef, turkey, or salmon. This approach ensures that each meal crosses the leucine threshold, flipping the anabolic switch inside your muscle fibers. But there's another layer, the psychology of eating. Many older adults begin unconsciously reducing their protein intake as they age, replacing it with more carbs or lighter foods. This creates a subtle but steady deficit that speeds up muscle loss. By making leucine a non-negotiable at every meal, you turn nutrition into a ritual for strength and independence. What's happening in your brain when this occurs is equally important. Muscle tissue releases small proteins called myokines whenever it contracts, and these myokines travel to the brain where they enhance mood, cognition, and resilience. In other words, feeding your muscles with leucine doesn't just keep your legs strong, it also keeps your mind sharp. Here's a motivational lens. Every bite of leucine-rich food is like sending a signal to your body saying, stay alive, stay strong, stay engaged with life. Instead of viewing food as just calories, you can begin to see it as direct communication with your biology, a way of instructing your body to resist aging. So forget the idea that whey protein alone will save your muscle mass. The truth is, the combination of leucine-rich whole foods spread across your day is far more powerful. By turning meals into anabolic signals, you not only guard against sarcopenia, but also create a body that supports energy, confidence, and longevity. For decades, eggs were misunderstood. First they were called nature's multivitamin, then demonized for cholesterol, then slowly redeemed again. But when it comes to muscle health, especially in aging, the science is remarkably clear. Whole eggs, not just the whites, are one of the most effective muscle-building foods we have. Here's why. Most people assume that protein is the star player in eggs, and yes, egg whites provide a clean, high-quality protein, but the real magic happens when you eat the whole egg, yolk included. A landmark study from the University of Illinois found that eating whole eggs after resistance exercise stimulated muscle protein synthesis more than eating the same amount of protein from egg whites alone. The yolk contains key nutrients, phospholipids, vitamin D, choline, and essential fatty acids that work synergistically with the protein to turn on muscle-building pathways. Think of it like this. The egg white is the construction material, while the yolk is the architect, the electrician, and the project manager. Without the yolk, your body gets the bricks, but not the blueprint or the wiring. With the yolk, the whole building comes together stronger and more efficiently. Now you might be wondering, but what about cholesterol? Here's what the research shows. Dietary cholesterol from eggs has a minimal impact on blood cholesterol levels for most people. In fact, the cholesterol in egg yolks plays a role in repairing cell membranes, supporting hormone production, and even aiding muscle recovery. For older adults who often face both declining testosterone and slower recovery, these nutrients become especially important. A practical protocol here is simple. Aim for 2-3 whole eggs a few times a week as part of your breakfast or post-exercise meal. Pair them with vegetables and a source of fiber to keep blood sugar steady. If you exercise in the morning, eggs are one of the most powerful tools you can give your muscles right after that session. Have you ever noticed how eggs tend to keep you fuller longer compared to cereal or toast? That's not just satiety, it's your body recognizing the dense package of amino acids and cofactors working together to repair tissue. In fact, satiety itself is a hidden tool against sarcopenia. When you're not craving junk, you're more likely to hit your protein and nutrient targets consistently. Here's another layer. Eggs also provide choline, a nutrient that supports acetylcholine, the neurotransmitter responsible for muscle contraction and memory. So when you eat eggs, you're not only feeding your muscles, you're feeding your brain's ability to activate those muscles more effectively. It's a feedback loop, better neuromuscular signaling, better strength, better independence. And here's the empowering mindset. Instead of thinking of eggs as just breakfast food, you can reframe them as one of the most accessible, affordable, and science-backed tools for protecting muscle with age. Whether you're 40 or 80, adding whole eggs to your diet is like telling your body, keep building, keep repairing, keep moving. Now, if this kind of science-backed insight is resonating with you, I want to pause for a moment and invite you into something bigger. This channel is all about giving you tools, practical, proven, and empowering to strengthen both your body and mind. So if you haven't already, consider subscribing. That way you'll always have the latest strategies at your fingertips to protect your health and extend your vitality. So forget the idea that eggs are risky. When it comes to fighting sarcopenia, eggs are one of nature's most complete anabolic packages, and unlike powders or supplements, they bring with them a constellation of nutrients your body knows exactly how to use. When people think about protein, they usually focus on how much they eat in a day. But here's what the research shows. It's not just about how much, it's about when. The timing and distribution of your protein intake can dramatically influence how well your body preserves and builds muscle. Here's the problem many older adults face. Breakfast might be a slice of toast or a bowl of cereal. Lunch, maybe a light sandwich. Then dinner becomes the main protein meal of the day. In other words, the protein is backloaded. This means your muscles only get one meaningful signal per day to grow or repair, while the rest of the time they're left in a catabolic state, quietly breaking down. A landmark study published in the Journal of Nutrition demonstrated that when older adults distributed protein evenly across breakfast, lunch, and dinner, roughly 25-30 grams at each meal, muscle protein synthesis was significantly higher compared to eating the same total protein but concentrated at dinner. It's like watering a plant. If you pour all the water on once a day, much of it just runs off. But if you water consistently, the roots absorb more and the plant thrives. Have you ever felt that mid-afternoon slump where your energy crashes and focus drifts? Part of that is blood sugar, but part of it is that your muscles and brain didn't get enough amino acids at lunch to stay fully engaged. By spacing out your protein, especially leucine-rich foods, you keep the muscle-building switch turned on throughout the day. A simple tool here is the 30-30 rule. Aim for around 30 grams of protein at breakfast, 30 at lunch, and 30 at dinner. That may sound like a lot, but it sits actually very manageable. Here sits what it might look like. Breakfast: 2 eggs, a cup of Greek yogurt, and a handful of nuts. Lunch: grilled chicken salad with beans or lentils. Dinner: a palm-sized portion of fish with quinoa and vegetables. This pattern ensures your muscles receive 3 strong anabolic pulses every day instead of just 1. Over time, those pulses add up to meaningful preservation of lean mass and function. There's another fascinating piece of science here, the concept of the anabolic resistance that comes with aging. As we get older, our muscles don't respond as robustly to protein as they did in youth. That means older adults need a slightly higher protein dose at each meal to trigger the same effect. Spreading protein evenly helps overcome this resistance and gives your body multiple chances to stimulate growth. From a psychological perspective, this also reframes eating. Instead of seeing meals as just fuel or habit, you can begin to view them as opportunities, 3 daily investments in your long-term independence. Each time you sit down to eat, you're not just preventing hunger, you're activating the very machinery that keeps you walking, lifting, and living life on your own terms. And here's an empowering mindset shift. Don't wait until dinner to give your muscles what they need. Treat breakfast and lunch as equal partners in the fight against sarcopenia. This shift alone can turn the tide on muscle loss, even without changing your total daily protein intake. So yes, quantity matters, but if you want to truly fight muscle loss and protect your strength, distribution is just as critical. Think of it as training your muscles with food, not once a day, but throughout the day. When we think about muscle, we imagine weights, resistance, and protein. Rarely do we think about the trillions of bacteria living in our gut. But here's what the latest science reveals. Your gut microbiome, the ecosystem of microbes in your intestines, plays a powerful hidden role in how much muscle you keep as you age. How does that work? The bacteria in your gut break down fibers and plant compounds into short-chain fatty acids such as butyrate. These molecules don't just feed your gut lining, they act like signaling agents traveling through the bloodstream to influence metabolism, inflammation, and even muscle repair. Studies from the University of Nottingham and the National Institutes of Health have shown that people with higher levels of these short-chain fatty acids tend to maintain more muscle mass and function in later life. Think of it this way. Your gut bacteria are like silent partners in the gym. While you lift, walk, or stretch, they're working behind the scenes, creating compounds that help your muscles recover and grow stronger. If the microbiome is diverse and well-fed, the support is robust. If it's starved and imbalanced, muscle breakdown accelerates. Here's where diet comes in. Many older adults unintentionally shift toward a low-fiber, high-processed food diet that starves the microbiome and weakens its contribution to muscle health. But when you bring back prebiotic fibers from foods like oats, onions, garlic, beans, lentils, apples, and leafy greens, you're essentially feeding the factory that produces the metabolites your muscles rely on. A practical protocol here is what I call the fiber plus protein combo. Every protein-rich meal should include at least 1 fiber-rich food. Eggs with spinach and mushrooms at breakfast. Salmon with lentils and asparagus at lunch. Chicken with quinoa and broccoli at dinner. This pairing creates a synergy. Protein provides the raw materials, while fiber feeds the gut bacteria that optimize how those materials are used. Have you ever noticed how much more energized and lighter you feel after a meal rich in whole foods compared to something processed? That isn't just digestion, that's your microbiome signaling less inflammation and more efficient metabolism. And remember, inflammation is one of the drivers of sarcopenia. When the gut is imbalanced, it can leak inflammatory molecules into the bloodstream, which accelerates muscle loss. By restoring balance through diet, you turn down the muscle wasting signal and amplify the muscle building signal. Another layer, your gut and brain are constantly talking through the vagus nerve. When your gut microbiome is healthy, the signals are calming, supportive, and energizing. This reduces stress hormones like cortisol, which when chronically elevated, break down muscle tissue. So by supporting your microbiome, you're also regulating your nervous system and protecting your muscles from the hidden wear and tear of stress. Here's a motivational reframe. Feeding your microbiome is like hiring a 24/7 repair crew for your muscles. You don't see them, but they're constantly patching, reinforcing, and strengthening. Every bite of fiber-rich food is like paying their wages, ensuring they show up for work on your behalf. And before we move forward, if you've been finding these insights practical and eye-opening, I'd love for you to join our growing community. Go ahead and subscribe, because every week I'll be sharing more tools grounded in science that help you stay strong, focused, and resilient for life. So remember, building muscle isn't just about what happens in the gym or in your biceps. It's also about what happens in your gut. Protect your microbiome, and your microbiome will protect your muscles. For a long time, plant proteins were dismissed as inferior to animal proteins. The argument was simple. They often lack one or more essential amino acids, and they tend to be less concentrated in leucine, the critical trigger for muscle growth. But here's the surprising truth from modern nutrition science. When combined strategically, plant proteins can rival animal proteins in supporting muscle health and fighting sarcopenia. Let's look at why. Protein quality is measured by how well it provides all 9 essential amino acids in the right balance. Most plant foods are incomplete, meaning they fall short in 1 or 2. For example, grains like rice and wheat are low in lysine, while legumes like lentils and beans are low in methionine. But when you combine them, beans with rice, lentils with quinoa, hummus with whole grain bread, the gaps fill in. Suddenly, you're getting the full amino acid spectrum your muscles need. A study published in Nutrients in 2020 confirmed this synergy. Older adults who consumed a diet with mixed plant proteins achieved muscle protein synthesis rates comparable to those on animal-based diets, provided the total intake and combinations were optimized. In other words, it's not about one food, it's about patterns and pairings. Here's such a practical protocol I call the plant power pairing. Breakfast, oatmeal with soy milk and chia seeds. Lunch, lentil soup with a slice of whole grain bread. Dinner, quinoa salad with chickpeas, olive oil, and roasted vegetables. Each of these meals delivers complementary amino acids that together support muscle protein synthesis. And when you add in leucine-rich plants like soy, tofu, tempeh, edamame, you amplify the anabolic response even further. Have you noticed how plant-based meals often leave you feeling lighter but still satisfied? That's the advantage. You get protein plus fiber, antioxidants, and phytonutrients, all of which reduce inflammation, improve gut health, and support recovery. Remember, fighting sarcopenia isn't just about feeding the muscles directly, it's about reducing the hidden stressors. Oxidative damage, chronic inflammation, poor digestion that erode muscle over time. Another fascinating point, plant proteins come with unique compounds that animal proteins don't. For example, soy contains flavones, which have been shown to support bone density, a crucial factor since muscle and bone health are inseparable. Quinoa brings magnesium, vital for muscle contraction and energy metabolism. Lentils and beans deliver iron and folate, supporting oxygen delivery to tissues. It's a package deal, and your body thrives on the diversity. From a psychological lens, embracing plant proteins also creates a mindset shift. Instead of seeing your diet as restrictive, I need to cut this or avoid that, you begin to see it as expansive. You start asking, how can I combine foods creatively to give my body the signals it needs? This mindset builds consistency because meals feel like opportunities rather than obligations. Here's an empowering takeaway. You don't need to choose between plants and animals. A blended approach often works best. Use animal proteins like eggs, fish, or poultry when you enjoy them, and weave in plant-based proteins to diversify your nutrient intake and support your microbiome. Think of it as building a symphony, where each food plays its part in the larger harmony of strength and health. So forget the outdated notion that plants can't build muscle. With the right pairings and enough total intake, plant proteins pack a punch. They not only protect your muscle, but they also deliver broad spectrum benefits for your heart, your gut, and your longevity. When we talk about muscle, we often think only in terms of strength, size, or mobility. But there's another dimension that often gets overlooked. Inflammation, chronic. Low-grade inflammation is one of the silent accelerators of sarcopenia. It doesn't just make you feel stiff or tired. It actively signals your body to break down muscle tissue faster than it can rebuild. Here's the science. Inflammation increases the activity of molecules called cytokines, particularly TNF-alpha and IL-6. These compounds interfere with the same mTOR pathway we talked about earlier, the switch that tells your body to build muscle. Instead, they activate pathways that increase protein breakdown. The result, even if you're eating enough protein, your muscles may not be getting the full benefit if inflammation is chronically high. Have you ever noticed how hard it is to recover from even light exercise when you're under stress, sleep deprived, or eating poorly? That's inflammation at work, blunting your body's anabolic response. And here's the encouraging part: nutrition can be one of the most powerful levers to dial that inflammation down. Research consistently shows that omega-3 fatty acids found in fatty fish like salmon, mackerel, and sardines reduce inflammation and directly enhance muscle protein synthesis. A landmark study published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition found that older adults supplementing with omega-3 SAS had a significantly improved anabolic response to protein intake and exercise compared to those who did not. In simple terms, omega-3 SAS make your muscles more sensitive to the protein you eat. Antioxidant-rich foods also play a critical role. Berries, leafy greens, turmeric, green tea. These are not just health foods, they are molecular shields. They neutralize oxidative stress, which otherwise chips away at muscle proteins and impairs recovery. Think of oxidative stress like rust on metal. Left unchecked, it weakens the structure. Antioxidants are like protective coatings that slow the rust and preserve the strength. A simple tool here is what I call the anti-inflammatory plate. At every meal, aim for a protein source with leucine, a healthy fat source, ideally omega-3 rich, a colorful plant food for antioxidants. For example, grilled salmon with quinoa and spinach, or lentil stew with turmeric and olive oil paired with a side of blueberries. It's not complicated, but the synergy of these elements keeps your inflammatory signals low and your anabolic signals high. Another overlooked factor is hydration. Even mild dehydration elevates cortisol, the stress hormone that promotes muscle breakdown. Something as simple as consistent water intake, especially alongside electrolyte-rich foods like cucumbers, celery, and citrus, can create a more anabolic environment in your body. Here's the empowering perspective. Muscle is not just a reflection of your workouts, it's a reflection of your internal environment. By lowering inflammation, you're not only protecting your heart, brain, and joints, you're directly preserving the very tissue that keeps you mobile and independent. And let's go even deeper. When you reduce inflammation and build muscle simultaneously, you create a feedback loop of resilience. Stronger muscles release more anti-inflammatory myokines during contraction, which further lowers systemic inflammation. In this way, muscle itself becomes medicine. Every step you take, every rep you perform, is your body dosing itself with compounds that fight disease and extend health span. So the invitation here is simple. View your meals not just as calories, but as signals. Every plate is a chance to tell your body either to break down or to build up. By choosing anti-inflammatory, nutrient-rich foods, you tip the scales towards strength, clarity, and vitality, no matter your age. So let's step back and connect the dots. We began by challenging the idea that whey protein alone is the answer to preserving muscle and fighting sarcopenia. What the science shows us is richer, more empowering, and more practical. First, we learned that leucine acts like the switch that turns on muscle growth, and whole foods provide this in a sustained way. Then we saw how eggs, especially the yolk, are nature's perfect anabolic package. We looked at timing and how spreading protein evenly across meals creates 3 strong signals a day instead of 1. We explored the gut-muscle axis where your microbiome quietly supports muscle repair. We uncovered the surprising power of plant proteins, especially when combined strategically. And finally, we recognized that reducing inflammation isn't just good for your heart, it directly protects muscle from breakdown. Here's the big takeaway: muscle loss with age is not inevitable. Sarcopenia is not a destiny, it's a condition that can be slowed, stopped, and even reversed with the right tools. By choosing foods intentionally, foods that are leucine rich, balanced across meals, supportive of the gut, inclusive of plants, and anti-inflammatory, you're not just feeding your muscles, you're feeding your independence, your energy, your brain, and your life. And here's the invitation. Starting today, choose one tool we talked about and put it into practice. Maybe it's adding 2 whole eggs to breakfast. Maybe it's restructuring your meals so protein is balanced throughout the day. Maybe it's simply adding a handful of berries or a piece of salmon to lower inflammation. Small steps compound, and each one is a vote for your strength and longevity. As you move forward, remember this: every bite of food is communication with your body. You are telling it whether to break down or to build up, whether to age faster or to stay vital, and you have the power to choose that message every single day. If this video has given you tools and hope, I'd love to invite you to like, share, and subscribe, not as a transaction, but as a way of joining a community committed to living stronger, sharper, and longer. Together, we can rewrite what aging looks like, one smart choice, one meal, and one habit at a time.